The Switch has a lot of games. Most people know the big ones, but tucked away in that library are games that deserve way more attention than they get. So today, we're going through 30 of the best hidden gems you might have completely missed. And trust me, some of these will blow your mind. The Rogue Prince of Persia doesn't get nearly enough credit. Made by Evil Empire, the same folks who kept Dead Cells alive for years, this is a 2D roguelite where you play as a confident, reckless prince whose mistakes led to a devastating Hun invasion of Persia. A magical bola tied to him since childhood sends him back in time every time he dies, so each run is a new attempt to undo the damage he caused. The movement is the real star here. Wall running, pole swinging, dashing through enemies, it feels effortless once it clicks. And there's a mechanic called Vayu's Breath that rewards you with buffs for chaining acrobatics without stopping. Combat mixes melee weapons, ranged options, and environmental kills. Each run teaches you more, and the story actually has weight to it, rare for the genre. Transistor, from Supergiant Games, the studio behind Hades. This is an action RPG set in a gorgeous sci-fi city called Cloudbank. You play as Red, a singer who survives an assassination attempt, but loses her voice in the process. The weapon used against her, a giant sword called the Transistor, absorbed the consciousness of someone she loved, and now that voice speaks to her through it as she fights her way through the city. Combat is wild. You can play it in real time or pause everything with the turn ability and plan out a sequence of moves before executing them all at once. Functions are your skills, and you can combine over 900 different permutations. Stacking one ability as an enhancement onto another changes how everything plays. It's deep. The story is told through atmosphere more than dialogue, but the relationship between Red and the voice in the Transistor is quietly devastating.
You're up.
Mark of the Ninja Remastered is a 2D stealth game made by Clay Entertainment, and it's probably the best stealth game you can get on Switch, full stop. You play as a nameless ninja marked with a tattoo that grants supernatural power at the cost of his sanity. That combination of growing ability and creeping madness feeds into the story in ways that get genuinely uncomfortable by the end. The gameplay is completely transparent. Enemies show exactly where they can see, sound is visualized on screen, and every death is your fault, not the game's. You can ghost through entire levels without killing anyone, or use your toolkit to terrorize guards and hang bodies from grapple points as distractions. Hidden scrolls, bonus objectives, and a scoring system give you plenty of reasons to replay every level. Hand-drawn visuals, voice cutscenes, and a dark story that sticks around after the credits.
Hello?
Guacamelee 2 is loud, colorful, absurd, and genuinely one of the most fun Metroidvanias ever made. You're back as Juan Aguacate, now a retired luchador living a comfortable life with his family, 7 years after saving the Mexiverse. That comfortable life doesn't last long. A new villain named Salvador has appeared in the darkest timeline, a parallel world where Juan never won. And now, Juan has to travel through alternate versions of the Mexiverse to stop him. The combat is brawler style. You combo enemies into the air, slam them down, headbutt them into walls, and chain everything together in satisfying sequences. New this time around is the Eagle Hook that lets you catapult off golden medallions, and an expanded chicken form with its own set of moves. Dimension shifting between the living and dead worlds is back, and more mechanically involved than ever. Pipistrello and the Cursed Yoyo. You play as Pippet, a young bat and trust fund nephew to the head of a powerful energy corporation. When rival crime bosses attack his aunt's manor and zap her soul into a bunch of mega batteries, Pippet's Yoyo accidentally catches a fragment of her consciousness, and now the aunt, very much against her will, has to guide her nephew around the city to get her body back. It's a top-down Zelda-style adventure. The devs call it a Yo-Yo-Vania, with GBA-era pixel art that looks like a lost classic. The yo-yo starts simple. Throw it, hit things. But it evolves constantly. You bounce it off angled walls to hit enemies from behind, ride it along surfaces, use it to reach distant platforms and switches. There's an open city to explore, sewers beneath it acting as a second layer, and themed dungeons each built around specific mechanics. Cyber Shadow is pure NES-era ninja action, made almost entirely by one person and published by Yacht Club Games. Set in a cyberpunk city called Mecha City, you play as Shadow, a ninja revived as a ghost in the machine, trying to rescue the last surviving members of his ancient clan from a synthetic army controlled by a mad scientist. The game wears its Ninja Gaiden influences on its sleeve, but it's cleaner, more deliberate than that. You start with just a katana and a jump, but abilities unlock gradually as you free your clan. Parrying, dashing, a dropkick that bounces off enemies, and each one changes how you approach every situation. Levels are distinct and packed with personality, from a rain-soaked rooftop duel to a motorcycle chase through a shattered highway. Boss fights are memorable, checkpoints are generous enough to keep frustration low, and the pixel art and chiptune soundtrack are genuinely gorgeous. Death's Door. You're a small crow. On your first assignment, your target soul gets stolen, and now you're mortal until you get it back. That's the setup for Death's Door, a top-down action-adventure from Acid Nerve that plays like Zelda filtered through Dark Souls, except way more charming than that description makes it sound. You fight with a sword and gradually unlock spells, a fireball, a bomb, a hookshot. Your ranged magic recharges through melee hits, so you're always mixing close and ranged combat in a satisfying loop. The world is dense with secrets, not a single room is empty or wasted, and the bosses range from a giant living castle wall to stranger, more unsettling things. The story is told mostly through the weirdest, funniest NPCs you'll meet: a witch cursed to outlive everyone, a potted-headed man, a lord who drinks coffee from a mug that says, "World's Best Lord." Unsighted is a top-down action game set in a world where androids, called automatons, run on a resource called anima. That resource is running out. The story follows Alma, an automaton who wakes from a recovery pod after a war with humans, and immediately goes looking for her best friend Raquel, who disappeared into the crater where a mysterious meteor fell. Here's the thing that sets Unsighted apart. Every automaton in the game, including key NPCs like merchants, is on a timer. If they run out of time, they go mindless and become enemies. You can choose to extend their lives with a scarce item called Meteor Dust, or spend it on upgrading your own healing. It's a genuinely tense moral system, and you can turn it off if it's too much. The combat is fast and parry-driven, counter an attack at the right moment, and enemies are left wide open for big damage. CrossCode is one of the most ambitious games on the Switch, and somehow barely anyone talks about it. You play as Leah, an avatar inside a futuristic MMO set on a moon. The catch? Leah has no memories and almost no ability to speak. A handful of programmed words, "Hi, sorry, Leah," are all she has as she navigates the game within the game, trying to figure out who she is and why she's there. The gameplay mixes fast action combat with some of the best puzzle design you'll find anywhere. You aim a ranged attack with the right stick, bounce it off walls and enemies, charge it up for high-power shots, or switch to melee for close-range combos. Dungeons are full of clever environmental puzzles that escalate beautifully. The world is massive, colorful, and full of side quests, a proper skill tree, and an honest-to-goodness JRPG-length story. Bastion was the game that put Supergiant Games on the map, and it still holds up completely. You play as the kid, the only survivor of something called the Calamity that shattered the world and its people into floating fragments. You wander through these broken pieces of the world called Bastion, building it back up piece by piece, armed with hammers, guns, bows, and whatever else you find along the way. The narrator, Logan Cunningham's voice, deep and western and reactive, describes everything you do in real time, including your mistakes, and it creates this immersive sense that the world is alive and watching you. Combat is fast and directional, with a dodge that has real weight to it. You can equip 2 weapons at a time from a wide selection, upgrade them at a smithy, and add alcoholic spirits to boost your stats in exchange for tougher challenges.
Them windbags are playing for keeps. Kid sees the way to the Bastion out the window. It's a bit of a drop.
Rogue Legacy 2. The idea is simple. You play as a hero who enters a cursed castle, dies, and then one of your descendants takes their place. Each heir has random traits. Some are helpful, some are hilarious, some are genuinely handicapping. A nearsighted hero blurs the screen. One with irritable bowels passes gas when they jump. A giant heir barely fits through doorways. Each run pushes you further into the castle, and everything you earn feeds into a family manor you upgrade between runs, permanently improving your heirs. The sequel added class variety that's genuinely deep, beautiful hand-animated art, and a structure that feels far less random and more strategic than the original. Every death teaches you something. The boss designs are memorable, the biomes are visually distinct, and the scaling of difficulty versus character growth hits a nearly perfect balance. Neva is from the same studio that made Cult of the Lamb, and while that was a management roguelite, this is something completely different. It's a 2D action game about a woman named Alba and a wolf cub named Neva, who are bonded together after a traumatic encounter with a dark force at the beginning of the game. The world around them is decaying, black tendrils consuming the landscape, and together they push through it. Combat is fluid and momentum-based. Alba has a sword, a parry, and aerial attacks, while Neva grows from a helpless pup to a fearsome wolf with her own attack patterns that sync with yours. The game is wordless almost entirely, telling its story through animation, music, and the evolving relationship between Alba and Neva. It's short, around 5 or 6 hours, but it's dense with emotional weight. Dredge is a fishing game that slowly turns into something else entirely. You play as a fisherman who arrives in a coastal town at the start of the game, and you spend your days sailing, casting lines, selling your catch, upgrading your boat. But the ocean here isn't safe. Night brings things that shouldn't exist. Your boat's lights attract attention, and staying out after dark builds your panic meter, which starts making you see things that may or may not be there. The fishing itself is a satisfying puzzle-like minigame, and collecting different species unlocks upgrades. As you explore further from town and visit isolated communities of strange, wary people, the story fragments reveal themselves. There's an ancient power out there, and someone is using you to get to it. Dredge is quiet, atmospheric, and surprisingly dread-inducing. A perfect nighttime Switch game. Ender Lilies is a dark, atmospheric Metroidvania where you play as Lily, a young girl in white who wakes in a ruined land called Land's End. A deadly rain has fallen and transformed the people into undead monsters. Lily can't fight on her own, but by defeating these corrupted knights, she purifies them, and their spirits then fight alongside her as attacks. Every boss you defeat becomes a new ability. One becomes a sweeping sword strike, another a ranged projectile, another a dash move, and you can mix and match these spirits to build your playstyle. The world is interconnected and full of hidden paths, lore fragments, and beautiful, sorrowful areas to discover. It's clearly inspired by Hollow Knight in feel and structure, but it has its own identity, slower, more deliberate, and deeply melancholic. The soundtrack by Binary Haze is exceptional, all slow piano and ambient strings, and the overall package is one of the most atmospheric games on the platform. Shogun Showdown. You're a samurai on a 2D lane, and combat runs on a tile-based turn system. You hold a hand of attack tiles, sword swipe, bow shot, special moves, and each turn you either move, wait, or play a tile, while enemies telegraph their next moves so you can plan around them. Positioning matters. The order you queue your tiles matters. When to hold a good tile and when to burn it matters. It's the kind of game where every death teaches you something, and every win feels completely earned. Between runs, you unlock new characters with different starting decks, upgrade the shops, and increase the meta progression. New days unlock incrementally harder versions of the run, with new enemy types and modifiers. It pulls from Slay the Spire and Into the Breach in the best way, but focuses entirely on a single character and tight positional combat. Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus. You play as Bo, a small celestial being who descends from the heavens to a world in crisis. Gods and spirits are out of balance, and something dark is pulling at the roots of everything. The movement is the centerpiece. Bo jumps, dashes, and bounces off enemies and objects in midair to extend combos. The more you chain together without touching the ground, the more it flows like a kind of aerial dance. As you progress through gorgeously illustrated environments, bamboo forests, shrine complexes, moonlit rivers, you unlock new mystical abilities that open up the world in classic Metroidvania fashion. The boss fights are standout moments, requiring pattern recognition and precise use of your moveset. The art is genuinely breathtaking, inspired by ukiyo-e woodblock prints, and the whole game has this quiet, meditative energy, interrupted by demanding, precise combat. Enter the Gungeon, or pick one of several Gungeoneers, a marine, a thief, a hunter, a pilot, each with a different backstory and starting loadout, and you descend into the Gungeon, a fortress built on a bullet capable of killing the past, to find and use it to undo their greatest mistake. Every room is a bullet hell gauntlet. Enemies shoot patterns, you dodge roll to create a brief window of invincibility, and your constantly rotating selection of absurd guns, from a mega hand to a Winchester to a gun that shoots guns, keeps every run feeling different. There are hundreds of guns and items, hidden rooms, NPCs to rescue, shortcuts to unlock, and relationships between items that create wild synergies when you discover them. Mastery of the dodge roll is everything. It's hard and punishing, but the skill ceiling is enormous, and when a run comes together and you're clearing rooms flawlessly, there's nothing better. Sentinels is not like any other game on this list. It's part visual novel, part real-time strategy, and it tells one of the most intricate sci-fi stories you'll ever experience in a game. 13 teenagers in Japan find themselves connected to giant mechs called Sentinels, destined to fight waves of giant kaiju-like enemies called Demos. You play through each character's story set across multiple time periods, from 1945 to the far future, piecing together a mystery that twists and folds back on itself in ways you won't see coming. The story chapters are mostly dialogue and exploration, in gorgeous 2.5D illustrated environments, while the battle sections are isometric strategy stages where you deploy your Sentinels and upgrade them between waves. The strategy side is accessible but satisfying, but the real pull is the narrative, layered, clever, emotionally resonant, and delivered through beautiful writing. Quartet is a love letter to 16-bit JRPGs that actually delivers on the promise. 4 characters, Nikolai the soldier, Ben the cook, Cordelia the law student, and Alexandra the shopkeeper, are drawn into a war being fought over magic. Their 4 opening chapters can be played in any order, each telling a distinct story in a different part of the world, before converging into one epic shared journey with all 8 party members. The combat is turn-based and streamlined. Abilities cost action points that regenerate every turn, so you're always encouraged to use your skills rather than hoard them. Status effects, elemental weaknesses, and party composition matter, but nothing is overcomplicated. The writing is the real standout. Politically layered, morally complex, with characters who feel like real people rather than archetypes. Cat Quest 3 goes full pirate, and it works completely. You're a swashbuckling cat, a privateer, sailing the Caribbean, an archipelago overrun by pirates, hunting a mythical treasure called the Northern Star. The island-hopping open world is colorful and packed with quests, hidden dungeons, and upgrades scattered everywhere. Combat is real-time action RPG stuff. Dodge, swing your sword, cast spells, mix magic and melee in quick flurries. The spell system is flexible and satisfying, and gear drops constantly so you're always comparing stats and builds. The game leans hard into cat and pirate puns relentlessly, cheerfully so, and the tone is so consistently joyful that even the most groan-inducing joke lands. The optional co-op makes it even better, and the sailing between islands adds a sense of adventure the series hadn't had before. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is a full-on return to the 2D roots of the franchise, made by the Game Kitchen, the studio behind Blasphemous, and it shows in every pixel. Set after the events of Ninja Gaiden 2, you play as Kenji Mozu, a young ninja of the dragon lineage, alongside Master Warrior Ryu Hayabusa, in a new story involving a demonic invasion. The game is mission-based, with ranked challenges in each stage, rewarding you for clean, skilled play. Combat is fast and precise katana slashes, aerial attacks, wind run along walls, and a growing set of unlockable abilities that expand your options as you go. Enemy placement is clever and fair, bosses have distinct patterns, and the pixel art is absolutely gorgeous, some of the best sprite work on the platform. Each level feels distinct, and the difficulty is calibrated to challenge you without becoming unfair. Spindle is a Zelda-like made by a 3-person team in Berlin, and it's one of the most charming surprises in recent indie gaming. You play as Death, not a dramatic, dark figure, but a cute, confused Reaper who wakes up to a world where nobody can die anymore. Your only companion is a small, talking pig. Nobody is dying, chaos is spreading, and you and your pig have to figure out why by exploring dungeons, solving puzzles, and fighting bosses across a vibrant, interconnected world. The top-down design draws directly from the classic Zelda formula: dungeon keys, boss patterns, item-gated progression, and executes it with care and heart. The pig is your guide, your moral compass, and honestly, the best character in the game. The tone walks a line between whimsical and genuinely melancholic, exploring what it means to accept endings, and the music on the snowy mountain ascent in particular is unforgettable. Grapple Dog, Cosmic Canines, is a platformer built entirely around one of the most satisfying movement systems in the genre. You play as Pablo and friends, a crew of spacefaring dogs with grapple hooks, swinging through levels at speed, chaining grapples together with jumps and slides to keep momentum going. The level design is specifically built to reward. Mastery, secret paths open up, times improve, and the flow state you hit once you learn a level is genuinely euphoric. There's a light story about cosmic threats and found family friendships, but the real draw is always the movement. Between levels, you upgrade your abilities and unlock new characters with different grapple properties. The game is cheerful and colorful without being visually exhausting, and the controls translate perfectly to handheld. It's a game that makes you feel incredibly skilled within a few hours, and that feeling only grows. Nobody Saves the World is a top-down action RPG with one genuinely creative hook. You can transform. You start as nobody, a blank, expressionless white figure, and you unlock forms by completing quests. Rat, ranger, ghost, horse, dragon, monk, egg, and more. Each form has its own attacks and passive abilities. And here's the twist. To level up a form, you have to actively use its unique skills in combat. That means you're constantly switching, combining abilities across forms in creative ways, and your playstyle evolves constantly throughout the 20-hour runtime. The world is filled with procedurally designed dungeons and a ton of content, and the quest structure is more organic than most ARPGs. There's also co-op for 2 players. The tone is comedic, but the game underneath is genuinely substantial, deep, flexible, and rewarding to experiment with. Ender Magnolia is the follow-up to Ender Lilies, and in almost every way, it refines what made the original special. Set in the same universe, you now play as Lilac, a girl who can repair corrupted homunculi artificial beings that have gone out of control after being exposed to alchemic steam. Like the first game, defeated bosses join your side and become your attacks. But the system here is deeper. You can swap between multiple allied spirits with different combos, enhancing them with upgrade materials and building a playstyle that's genuinely yours. The world is larger and more interconnected, the movement is tighter, and the visual design continues the series' tradition of melancholy watercolor beauty. The story is warmer than Ender Lilies, with Lilac being a more active, emotionally expressive protagonist, but it still carries that weight of a world that's been broken for a long time. Tunic. You're a small fox in a mysterious world with no text you can read. The manual, an in-game booklet you collect pages of, is written in an alien language, and the game never translates it for you. You figure things out through observation, experimentation, and the slow accumulation of pages that reveal mechanics you didn't know existed. Combat is isometric and Souls-influenced. Stamina, dodge rolls, hidden enemies, demanding bosses. But the mystery is what drives everything. Items in your inventory don't explain themselves. The map hides things in plain sight, and as the game progresses, it reveals that the mystery runs far deeper than it first appears. Figuring out the language, decoding the manual, and uncovering what's actually happening in this world is one of the most rewarding experiences gaming has to offer. Inscryption starts as a card game and becomes something genuinely unsettling and impossible to put down. You're stuck in a dark cabin with a hooded figure named Leshy, playing a deck-building card game where your characters actually die when their cards lose, and you have to venture into a 3D space around the table to find resources, solve puzzles, and negotiate for better cards. The deck building is clever and engaging. You sacrifice weak cards to pay the costs of strong ones, but the game keeps breaking its own rules in ways that keep you off balance. Strange things start happening. The fourth wall gets wobbly, and then the game completely transforms into something else. Then again. Inscryption rewards people who are willing to let a game surprise them, who don't look up spoilers, and who lean into the weird. Mio, Memories in Orbit. You play as Mio, a small female robot who wakes with no memories on a massive derelict spacecraft called the Vessel. The ship's AI guardians, called the Pearls, have gone silent, and the vessel is decaying. Mio has to travel through its interconnected biomes, each one a different ecosystem of biomechanical life, to find and reactivate the Pearls. Combat is tight and precise, with parries, dashes, and a weapon that evolves as you collect upgrades. The platforming is demanding but rewarding, but it's the art direction and soundtrack that elevate Mio above its peers. The environments look like watercolor paintings in motion, and the music shifts from slow, ethereal piano during exploration to driving electronic intensity in boss fights. The story is told quietly, through fragments and NPC interactions, and carries a melancholy about legacy, memory, and connection that lingers long after you put it down. Absolum is the game the makers of Streets of Rage 4 made after proving they could do beat-em-ups, and this time they pushed the genre somewhere new. It's a roguelite brawler set in a dark fantasy world called Tala, where a tyrant called Sun King Azra has enslaved wizards and crushed the population under his regime. You pick from 4 characters: Galandra the elf, Carl the dwarf, Cider the assassin, and Brome the frog warrior, and fight your way through procedurally arranged paths toward Azra's tower. Each character plays completely differently, and the roguelite layer adds rituals, trinkets, and randomized power combos that make every run feel fresh. Combat is gorgeous, fluid, combo-heavy, with parries, dodges, rideable beasts, and explosive finishers. The art style looks like a high-end graphic novel in motion, fully voiced and atmospheric. Sea of Stars. Made by the team behind The Messenger, it's a love letter to the golden era of 16-bit RPGs, specifically Chrono Trigger, with a turn-based combat system that adds a timing layer to everything. You can boost your attacks with well-timed button presses, block incoming damage by pressing the right button at the right moment, and interrupt enemy attacks by targeting a specific element combo before their countdown ends. It sounds complex, but feels intuitive within minutes. The story follows two children of the solstice, Valir and Zale, who wield the power of sun and moon magic to fight a dark alchemist and the monsters he creates. It's a sweeping adventure with a cast full of personality, surprising twists, and moments of genuine emotional weight. The pixel art is some of the best ever made. Lighting effects, water reflections, character animations, all stunning. The world is huge, full of secrets, and a joy to explore. That's 30 games right there. If even one of these is new to you, go check it out. Your backlog will thank you later. Well, maybe not thank you, but you know what I mean.